Hello and welcome back to the Chargers Check-In. My name is Cecilia, coming to you after Keenan Allen has finally broken Antonio Gates' reception record for most all-time receptions with the Chargers. Absolute legend of a Chargers player. It was so great to see that the stadium got excited for him. I know Antonio Gates was in the building and was excited for his guy. That was absolutely great to see. And other than that, obviously I'm coming to you after a huge Chargers win. This is going to have all sorts of implications for the AFC. I'll probably get into the playoff picture in another video. But that leads me into my first of 5 takeaways from the Chargers' victory over the Steelers, and that is that the AFC is up for grabs in 2025. This has been the year of the upset. We have seen so many bad teams beat good teams, and so many good teams falter to bad teams. Chargers fans know that. We lost to the Giants, okay? Everyone's done it, not necessarily to the Giants particularly, but even the Titans have a win, okay? So clearly this kind of thing is what happens this year, and that's good news for Chargers fans, because as long as the AFC is open, teams that are a little more beaten up, a little bit, more in on their depth chart, like the Chargers, have a chance. Look, the Steelers, they are a playoff caliber team. That doesn't mean I think that they're a great team. It means that I think because of the division they're in, there's a strong chance that the Chargers face them in the playoffs. And, they're not amazing, but they present a specific challenge for the Chargers offensive line. A really tough pass rush and really tough run stopping. Well, the Chargers got it done. I'm not saying they did an amazing job at protecting Herbert, but they did what they needed to do. Greg Roman successfully protected Herbert just enough. If I had to guess any game this year that Herbert goes down and actually gets injured, it would have been this one. So getting through this game relatively unscathed is huge. It was great to see the Chargers step up and play well against a team that, is the leader in their division. When I predicted that the Steelers would win, half of my comments were, the Steelers are going to flatten the Chargers. What do you mean it's going to be a close game? That's stupid. And the other half of the comments were, how dare you decide that the Chargers aren't going to win this game? Are we even watching the same team? So yeah, guys, the AFC is open. This stuff can't be predicted. I'm arrogant. I'm still going to predict stuff. That's how this goes. But hey, the Chargers humbled me on this one. My second takeaway from this victory is that Jesse Minter is back, holding the Steelers to that few of points when they've been averaging over 25 a game. And said, they get 3 points for most of the game and then they get 7 in garbage time. I'm fine with that. I can live with that because their offense has been really carrying them this year. Obviously, that's a little weird for the Steelers, but holding them to that, it's incredible. It helped that Rodgers played arguably one of the worst games of his career, but if you shut down the run game, you put all the focus on Rodgers and his poor passing game, and he looked a little old out there. He looked a little uncomfortable. He looked like he wanted to avoid hits because this defensive line was playing tough, was playing physical, and getting things done, and I love to see that the turnovers are back. Dante Jackson, RJ Mickens, they both did what they could. I'm not saying that they were incredible plays, but by getting those interceptions, they set up their offense, taking possessions away, taking points off the board. RJ Mickens, he's had multiple interceptions. His coverage grade was awesome. I can't wait to watch that film back. And I thought they had a great plan against DK Metcalf. Most teams have not successfully shut him down. Most teams, Aaron Rodgers just looks at him on third down and that's where he's going. And that's not what happened. I think that shows Jesse Minter watched the tape, saw what we saw and made a good plan to address it. Holding Metcalf to 35 yards and 3 receptions, I could not ask for better execution on that point. Aaron Rodgers looked completely lost without his reliable outlet, and he couldn't get first downs. Jesse Minter is back, guys. Jesse Minter is back. My third takeaway from this game is that Khalil Mack is so important that the Chargers must draft his successor. They need to do that this year because if he can be a mentor next year, we'll be lucky if Khalil Mack comes back, but if he comes back, fills in his role and mentors the next guy up, that would be huge for the rest of this defensive line. Khalil Mack, he did all the dirty work today. He absorbed the double teams. He had that great safety play. He helped Thule and Aboigbe get to the passer. And he was a tone setter in the run game, man. Him and Denzel Perryman are so important. My fourth takeaway is a little bit less positive. Unfortunately, it is that this receiving unit let Justin Herbert down in this game, especially in the first half. I'll give it to Lad McConkey. I don't love that he had a drop that almost led to an interception, but he had over 100 yards, went for a touchdown. I I got to kind of give that to him, right? Of all the receivers, he's the one who showed up the best. But a lot of the time, Oronde Gadsden was not on the same page as Herbert. Ladd, like I said, with that dropped pass, everyone was taking a little bit too long to get open against that press coverage. And I think that led to Justin Herbert taking a few more hits than I would like to see. There's nothing he can do about that when he's trying to escape a collapsing pocket if his guys aren't open. Obviously, Justin Herbert going 20 for 33. It's not a good look on him, but I think Justin Herbert was pretty accurate with his throws. I think this is a receiver stat, to be honest. I'm disappointed. And if Gadsden ends up going down with that knee injury, well, the rest of the receiving core is going to have to step up. Obviously, Gadsden didn't have a good game, but he's been a really important part of this passing game, and it's going to be important that QJ steps up, that Ladd keeps this level of play up. Loved his route running. I thought he did a great job. And that Keenan Allen, kind of gets back in the game. He only had 2 receptions. Obviously, that second one was that manufactured 1-yard forward pass, which was awesome, too, in its own way. But this group definitely needs to step up going forward. My 5th and final takeaway is that Jim Harbaugh has successfully changed the identity of the Chargers. Kimani Vidal runs so physical and so tough that when people tackle him, they are the ones who are slow to get up. They are the ones who look tired, who look shaken. I'm so impressed with Kimani Vidal's development in his second year. Obviously, Harbaugh made a big impact on his first year. They made the playoffs, drastically overperformed their roster, all that. But I think we're starting to see the pieces come together with that physicality. Here is Jim Harbaugh on this win.
I like wins that are decided by great preparation, great strategy, finesse. The best to me are the physical ones, won by heart and grit and guts. To me, those are the best, and that's what this one was. I just feel like our team's got hearts of champions.
I know a lot of the time we can't see just how physical they're playing, because when we think of physicality, we think of the trenches, so we think, our offensive line, they just don't really have it. Well, the culture is still there because the rest of the team clearly has it, and I think that shows in the run game, absolutely showed on defense. I can't wait to get into defense with you guys, but that's the Jim Harbaugh effect. The Jim Harbaugh effect is real. So those are my 5 takeaways from this game. Now I want to get into the details, so if you're a super fan like me and you want to get into this thing, then stick around. We'll take a look. First of all, injuries. Look, Justin Herbert didn't really get injured, but they did tape up his ankle, both of his ankles really, and I thought the Steelers defensive line played a little dirty. Looked like they were going out of his way to hurt him. Honestly, doesn't surprise me with that particular franchise. But luckily, Herbert came through relatively unscathed. Vidal also took a beating, but he also seemed okay. Tear Tart went out in the third quarter. He got his ankle wrapped. But most notably, Oronde Gadsden left the game. They said on the broadcast it was with a knee injury. An MRI revealed earlier today that it was a bruised quad and that he'll be day-to-day. So I think we'll look for that on the injury report later in the week when we can see, okay, is it a limited practice situation? Is it a not practicing situation? Hopefully he's out there next week against the Jaguars, because I think he's a really important part of this passing game. That being said, let's get into the offensive performance. I thought it was okay overall. I wasn't super impressed. They only had a 37% success rate. Ultimately, that's not going to be good enough going forward, but the offense has been really good overall this season, and it's the defense we've been more concerned about. So I'm glad to see that when the offense had a bad day, the defense was right there to pick them up. That makes a really big difference because some part of your team has to show up. I did not love the game plan, especially, I'm talking about the opening script. Running Kimani Vidal in the B gap on the first play, I didn't think that made any sense. Not only is it a relatively predictable open, just running the ball between the tackles, but also, I think we've seen at this point, Kimani Vidal, besides the fact that he does better on the outside, he starts to open up the middle of the field once the passing game gets going. It's unfortunate that that's the case, and obviously every running back takes, maybe a quarter to really get into a rhythm and all that, and you got to keep giving it to them. But I think we saw the Steelers' defensive line not know how to handle the run once they got the pass going and not before. So it's unfortunate that game plan didn't work out. I'm hoping that we see a significant change going against the Jaguars, who have an even worse defensive line, so it should work even better to throw them off by either opening the drive with a play action, a designed quarterback run, something to get them off of their rhythm, and more importantly, establishing the pass before we try to run between the tackles, at least until we get Hampton back. I know that sounds backwards. Ideally, you establish the run, you follow it with the pass, but that just isn't the reality for a team whose interior cannot run block. It's unfortunate, but it's just where we are. So that's something I want to see change going forward. Something I did like, I like that the power surge play is being run successfully. That's what Chargers fans are calling the tush push when we run it, because you have guys start a little bit farther back and then get some momentum when they make contact with Justin Herbert and push him forward. Usually it's Trey Harris that they have do that because he's, kind of the physical strong guy back there. It's really important that they're able to execute that against the Steelers defensive line. That's a December skill. That's a cold weather playoff kind of game skill that they're going to need to have, and really glad that hasn't been a concern this game, or this season, and especially this game going against a really good defensive line. Like I said, receiver performance was not good. You could especially see it if you watched that first quarterback, that Ladd McConkey it felt like he was the only one who showed up to play, and even he had a drop that almost led to an interception. He's going to have to play better. They're all going to have to play better. But I still give credit for Ladd McConkey. He had a really great kind of double move out there that led to the touchdown. His route running has never failed him. If he can get his hands together, that's going to make a really big difference going forward, especially if Oronde Gadsden is out. Other than that, like I said, Kamani Vidal looked great. I've been overall impressed with how Greg Roman has protected Justin Herbert. Didn't love the opening script, but protecting Justin Herbert is the most important thing, and they largely succeeded at that. And last thing for the offense, too many penalties on the offensive line. That's been true this whole season. It has to get better. I have seen no evidence that it will. It's one of the most concerning aspects of this game. Luckily, the team they're playing next week has even more penalties than them, so, maybe that can be an opportunity for them to clean it up. But Mekhi Becton is not playing well. Most of these penalties aren't on him, but he allowed 5 pressures and 1 sack, and those pressures, that's more than Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson allowed combined. That's a really bad performance, and I know he's a huge guy, great in the run game, all that, but the pass protection is what scares me, because Justin Herbert being healthy is the team's chances of making the playoffs. So those are my takeaways on the offensive side, and I want to get to the defense, because this is the positive part of the game. I want to know, who did you guys see stand out on the defense? Because, I was impressed with Derwin James. I was impressed with Dayon. I really impressed with RJ Mickens, and I'll get into that. But who did you guys see stand out? It's good to see them improving at the right time. I like that when one of them goes up to tackle and they slow down the runner and you're not sure, are they going to get him down or not? Immediately they're swarmed. That's something that I know Jesse Minter has emphasized at practice. They do a competition. Who can get to the ball first the most amount of times? They have like a keeping score metric. At least that's what they did in the preseason. I think it shows. I think they look better at that than they did last year. And it hasn't gone unnoticed to the players. Here's Derwin on the defense's improvement in this game.
Just trying to uphold our standard from all the other talks I told you, man. Just trying to come out and be that team that we know we is, be the defense we know we is, and can't just do it by talking. So just getting it fixed. And these last few weeks we've been playing better ball, so just keep stacking them.
They did a great job covering DK Metcalf, especially on third down in that first drive, completely shut down Aaron Rodgers' plan, and you can tell Aaron Rodgers needs that outlet. He does not trust his receivers, which is something he always does. We saw him do it to Mike Williams and, do him dirty and not trust him. And, he paid the price for that. I don't know if any team has successfully shut down DK Metcalf like the Chargers did. And so for there, I got to give credit to Cam Hart, because I had said, I straight up had said, you can't just put him one-on-one with DK and expect that to work. Well, it turns out you can, because he shut down DK. So I'll take the L on that gladly, because that was a great job. They did still shift a safety over there usually, but on those short third downs, I think that made a difference, and shutting it down early in the game, setting the tone of, hey, you can't just use your outlet. You have to execute. You have to get to multiple progressions. Thought that made a big difference and led to some sacks down the line. Denzel Perryman's really important to this team. He got a great tackle on Jaylen Warren in the first quarter. He hit him really hard. It's just awesome to see him. So glad he's back and healthy. He's getting older, but he still has it in him, man. And speaking of still having it in him, Khalil Mack with that safety, incredible. Put the first points on the board come from Khalil Mack, and it's not an interception or a fumble. It's him saying, no, Aaron Rodgers, you're not outrunning me. You're not escaping me. It was just incredible. RJ Mickens man, what a performance from RJ Mickens. He had great coverage all game, great tackle on third down where he came from a really soft coverage, sprinted up there and did not give them anything. You love to see it, playing with urgency, playing with some fight. Obviously, he got that interception, came at a really important time toward the end of the first half, and that was the big swing in momentum. Before that, it was like, yeah, the Chargers look like they're a little more up, but it's more so that the Steelers are messing up. It's more so that the Steelers are not executing, panicking, trying to slow this game down, make it play out over a long time, and RJ Mickens said, no, you can't make that throw near me. Bud Dupree actually got a sack. Khalil Mack did all the dirty work, so he just kind of ran into him, but hey, a hard hit is a hard hit. We'll take that. He hit Aaron Rodgers very hard. It looks a little goofy every time he goes out there and does a big celebration, because I'm like, man, I don't know if we'll ever see this kind of performance again, where you get one sack. But hey, like I said, a sack is a sack. Thule got one as well. He's improving a lot. That's really good to see. Nico Reed had a great pass breakup on that deep pass. Aaron Rodgers he's big game hunting. He wants to make the game-changing pass on any given play, and he didn't get to do that because Nico Reed, he looks really good at nickel, and he has come back at a really good time. Huge fourth down stop in the fourth quarter. That made a big difference. I love that the Chargers defense is performing really well on third and fourth down. Again, that is a playoff skill. That is a close game, when it's cold out and everything, maybe you don't want to kick the ball because everything is windy or cold, just like we saw at the Bears game. I think fourth down stops are going to be really important for this team moving forward. Moving on to special teams, Cameron Dicker tied his career-high 59-yard kick. Love to see it. Harbaugh doesn't go for that if Josh Harris hadn't returned. So while we applaud Cam Dicker, we also have to keep in mind, J.K. Scott didn't have to field a bad snap from Rick Lovato, and we got to be grateful for that. So shout out to Josh Harris, who is finally back. J.K. Scott overall did well. He had a really bad punt after that first drive, which isn't great, but then he followed it with 4 really good punts that led to some really good field position, combined with the good defensive performance. So he's very up and down, but overall the Chargers are pretty lucky to have him. Good to see him, just be able to focus on punting, not fielding bad snaps. Travion Williams was elevated. He had 1 kick return. Wasn't great. There wasn't really much there for him. It wasn't much blocked up. Darius Davis had a return. It was solid. Good to see. Came back from about the 9-yard line, ran it to the 25. That's solid. It's not amazing. I want to see him break a big one, but it is what it is. I'm much more concerned about the return coverage because it's not great. I'll get into this in another video, but the Jaguars, they have gotten touchdowns on punt returns before. They did it last week against the Texans, and when you're playing a lesser team, and I'll go ahead and say that the Jags are, stuff like this has to be really clean because that's how bad teams get in the game with good teams. Overall, special teams played pretty well. They recovered that botched punt return thing, where they just couldn't bring it in. I thought that punt recovery was a little more of a reflection on the Steelers falling apart than anything else. That's half of the story of the game is the Steelers just kind of fell apart. But overall, it was a great job. So those are my takeaways from the game. Those are my thoughts on all sides of the ball. I do have some thoughts on the Sunday Night Football viewing experience I'm going to get to. But let me know what you guys think. What excited you about this game? What does it mean for the Chargers? And what worries you going forward as we approach playoff time? So I thought, getting to the Sunday Night Football viewing experience, I thought that the Steelers played kind of dirty. It felt like they were taking every cheap hit as far as they could without getting a penalty. And they figured out early on, okay, the refs don't want to call this. They don't want, to call a bunch of penalties during prime time because they get criticized for calling too many penalties. Let's see what we can get away with. Herbert got hip drop tackled. They didn't call it. There was that weird, getting in Darius Davis's face for no reason on a really standard return. And Darius Davis, pushes him away. Come on, throw the flag on that. I don't know. That was very weird. Obviously, I think they should have gotten a flag, but that was more of a reflection on just how the Steelers play. It felt like the worse they felt like they were playing, the more dirty they were willing to play, the more desperate they were playing, which doesn't bode well for, Mike Tomlin, because it's like the Chargers didn't blow them out right away. They should have been in that game, but these stupid decisions and playing undisciplined, focusing more on hitting Herbert than actually executing the play in front of them, that cost him. And personally, I love to see it. I think it's happening to a quarterback who deserves it a lot. Other than that, the NBC graphics were really weird, right? That like medieval theme, that doesn't really fit with the Chargers theme, doesn't fit with the Steelers. You could lean into that with the Chargers. They used to have that horse charging on a shield logo. That, you could say that that's a medieval connotation, but they didn't bring that in at all. They just kind of put Justin Herbert in a weird hat and weird clothes and then had people march toward a tower. Why do we need to do that stuff? It feels very silly. It feels very juvenile. Don't like it. Speaking of silly and juvenile, Chris Collinsworth is an awful commentator. I often just mute the broadcast when I have to listen to him because he doesn't offer anything. There are times when I'm like, do anything other than just laugh at whatever happened. It sounds almost like he doesn't know anything about football and he's trying to play it off like he does. It's very weird because he does know stuff about football. We know that. So why is he like this? I don't understand how he's been in this for years and has not turned that into a viable skill. No issue with Mike Tirico. He's fine. I wish he'd get more excited about stuff, but it is what it is. I don't know. Chris Collinsworth is a bottom tier commentator. There have to be better ones out there, man. I'm consistently disappointed with him. He was talking about other things, telling stories, and it's like, why are you bored in the second quarter? If you don't like tough, gritty, defense-led football, why are you calling a Steelers game? That doesn't make any sense. The Steelers, they're the Iowa of the NFL, right? Ugly colors, ugly uniforms, defense-led, physical, weird, low-scoring games. That's what they do. That's well known. If you're not okay with that, why are you calling the games? Those are my thoughts on Sunday Night Football viewing experience. Didn't think it was great. Just thought it was kind of weird. But I'm curious what you guys think. Do you guys like Chris Collinsworth? What am I missing about Chris Collinsworth? What's the appeal? Because I sure don't get it. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you've liked what you've seen. I'll be back later in this week to talk about the AFC playoff picture and to preview this upcoming matchup against the Jaguars, which is going to have some pretty important playoff implications for the Chargers. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for being here.